And it comes down to point blank, people treat others based off of the way they've been treated. And I get that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third episode now of Let's Rap. I'm your illustrious host, Philosophical.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm your co-host, Jay Echo.
Pretty much today, we're going to reiterate and kind of go back on some of the solutions of the power struggle. Uh, we heard a lot of feedback and a lot of people kind of talk about what do you do in such situations. And first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate everybody and the support so far through this journey of us getting here and kind of just continue to support us, continue to be there for us as this is a journey.
Yeah,
And
we appreciate it.
definitely. So, without further ado, how do you feel about the whole, kind of reiterating, going back to the power struggle within relationships, Jay?
Well, how I feel about it, I think I said this a couple different ways, a couple different times, but the I think it starts with it primarily concerns people learning how to treat one another. And the second part of it is people owning people owning their part, you know. And that's not to say, and this may not have come across the first time, the first time couple times we spoke about it, but that's not to say that things like social pressure, things like the social contract, things like, abusive relationships, stuff like that. That's not to say that that stuff doesn't happen, but I want to repeat, and I want to and I'll keep harping on it. Like, we have to take responsibility for setting the expectations in our relationships. That's number one. And number two, if we're if initially things didn't get off on the right foot, and things are at a place that you're not happy, and you're trying to figure out how to fix the situation, that still comes down to you have to be active and own the solution. You have to play an active role in creating the solution. Like, you can't just tell somebody there's a problem and not participate in the solution. So I think those are my biggest things with this entire conversation.
So, for the listeners out there, I think Jay Echo is being very nice and very nice and polite and being very what I call sugarcoating the situation.
Mhm.
But me on the other hand, I'm a little bit frustrated with the situation
Mhm.
because the fact that we as men we got to own a lot of responsibility,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And we're not. That's first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, you made a good point on how a lot of people don't know how to treat each other.
Yeah.
And it comes down to point blank, people treat others based off of the way they've been treated. And I get that part. And it takes
Mm.
a level of maturity to grow up and say, you know what? However, I was treated before, not everybody deserves to be treated that way.
Yeah.
And I've been saying this for a long time. I'm still learning it myself because I go through it every day.
Oh, so am I. So am I.
The energy you put out is the energy you receive. Ladies
Mhm.
and fellas, if you're in a situation where if you can't have a simple conversation with your significant other, there's some decisions that need to be made. If you're willing to work it out, if you're willing to have a conversation on how we can work this out, yeah, you ask the question, but at the same time, asking in a way that, you know, what are the real issues here? What is it that you want? Kind of meet in the middle with this because
See,
it's go ahead.
back go ahead. See, I'm feeling some type of way because I feel like I said the exact same thing and you were fighting me on.
No, I wouldn't fight you on it. The fact that I think you're trying to sugarcoat this in the fact
No,
that
it's not about
oh,
sugarcoating.
it's
It's about
sugarcoating it, man. You putting this.
nah. Because here's why I don't feel like I'm sugarcoating it, because I
Okay.
feel like and you might disagree. I'll you can respond when I'm done. I feel like a lot of times when people say take responsibility, people treat it like you it's a four-letter word. People treat the word responsibility like it's a four-letter word, you know?
So when you
Like,
say take your responsibility, there's a difference between take responsibility and actually accept it. Because when you take it, it's like, all right, I'll just take the responsibility. I'll apologize, but you continue to do the same behaviors.
no, 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 no. When I say take responsibility, and I think this is where our disconnect initially happened during the times we've had this conversation. But when I say take responsibility, I'm not saying, oh, it's my fault. All of this is my fault. And
That's accepting responsibility.
that
That's
there's a,
accepting
that's
responsibility.
that's there's a difference though. I'm not talking about accepting responsibility for everything.
Okay,
And
explain what the difference is, because it's
so
it's cut and dry.
there's
You
taking
either accept it or you don't.
responsibility. There's taking responsibility for the part that you have played, and then there's just and this is and then there's what's it called, dumping on yourself for stuff you couldn't control.
I don't agree, man. I don't agree. I
I mean,
don't agree at all.
I
Because
think
let's
there's
say,
a
for example,
difference between that. Like, because for instance, like when we were having the conversation the first time, I said, oh, we as men need to take responsibility for our choices, right? That's what I said.
correct.
And you said, but there are things that other people, like there are other parts to it, like there are expectations, there's all this stuff.
There are.
I
There are.
understand that. When I say take responsibility, I'm not saying take responsibility for all the stuff that's not yours.
I
I'm so
understand that.
I'm
But
talking
what
about take responsibility for your choices, take responsibility for take an active role in working towards a solution. That's what I mean when I say take
but
responsibility. I'm
we as
not just
men,
saying,
but we as men have got to be able to accept those actions and responsibilities. Too many
yes.
times in relationships, in marriages, friendships, even family and friends, right? Two people that
Hmm.
aren't talking to each other, somebody's got to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's always, if you got your woman going to your girlfriends and say, I got this problem with my man, however you say it, the first response the woman's going to say is like, what did he do now? Why is it like that? Why does it have to be that like that? Why does it have to
I mean,
be,
but
an
but
instance where it's not even the other person hasn't even heard the other side of the story yet? It's
but
too many
Phil,
times.
here's I mean, you just said something about, oh, the woman will say, oh, what did he do now? But I've heard just as many men who, when they're going to their boys talking about, oh, there's a problem in their relationship, it's, oh, what did she do now?
That's not true. That's not
You
true.
have
There's
you
a
may
there's a
not have heard
total
it.
there's a
You may
total
not
different
have heard
response.
it, but I have. I've
It's a
heard it.
total different response. It's a total different response. If you came to me and said, hey, Phil, I got an issue going on in my relationship, the first question I'm gonna ask you is like, what's going on? Tell me your side of the story. Because at the end of the day, it's two sides of the story. It's two
See,
sides of the
that's
story.
that's one part of it, but we will ask what's going on. But there's also, or the other side of it is, oh, what did she do? You know, like I've heard just as many times where a dude will come into a conversation and be like, yo, man, I'm having a problem. It's like, oh, what she do? Or
But
what she
do you know
say,
the difference?
or
Do you know
something
the
like
difference
that.
between do you know the difference between a woman telling her girlfriend her man problems and the difference between a guy telling another man his woman problems?
Well, half the time
The,
we don't tell each other our problems in the
oh,
relationship.
and that's why we're here today. But not, not 9 times out of 10, like if one of my bros come to me and tell me, I got a problem with my girl, 9 times out of 10, before he even tells me, like, whatever the issue is, I can tell him, yo, just do this, try this, tell her that. Now, how you relay that information, how you accept that information is on you. But 9 times out of 10, I call them the vultures. Women women talk to their girlfriends and it's like, What did he do now? Oh, you can find a better man. You can do this. Why do men have such a bad name? You know what I mean? I just don't. I've
This
never
is this
understood
is
that.
this is where I will say this is partially self-inflicted. Our bad name is partially self-inflicted, not all
Why do
of
you
it,
why do you feel it's self inflicted?
because for a long, and I'm not talking about what's it called? I'm not talking about, and I hate using this term because it's people would throw it around too much, but I'm not talking about all men, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But there are a good number of we have been through a whole movement of women just come stepping forward and be like, yo, a lot of dudes have dogged me out for no reason and they have
Okay.
faced zero consequences. So if a whole bunch of people are coming forward and saying that, it might not be you. It might not be you. Like, it might not be you, Phil. It may not even be me. But the fact remains that there are a lot of women out here, a lot of people out here who have caught foolishness from men. There are.
Correct. And just as much as we've got foolishness from women.
I'm not
So
saying I'm not saying that women don't do foolishness either. But what I'm saying is we have been in a dominant position for a lot longer, and because of that, they have caught it a lot worse in some ways.
we've been in a dominant position based off of the fact that we haven't used our dominance in a manner that it should be used. For example,
And that's why I say it's self-inflicted, because if you're and this is my thought process purely. I mean, you can agree or disagree, but if you are in a position of if you are in a position of prominence, right,
mhm,
and there is a task or something on the table, and you have all the resources to accomplish that task and reap the benefits that that task would bring, but you don't do that task, and then somebody else does it and they reap the benefits, you can't then be mad at the other person for reaping those benefits, right?
yeah,
I
okay.
know that's
So
a roundabout. I know.
I see what you're saying about that. So, what you're trying to say is, and this is strictly my opinion. I want everybody to understand this is strictly my opinion. This is
Yeah,
strictly
yeah,
kind of just me talking.
yeah.
Just as much as the world, as far as having a good job, going out and getting a nice car, um, having a nice house, providing for your family, just as much as that type of thing that you're supposed to do is a dog eat dog world. Relationships, marriages, and even friendships are a dog eat dog world. Because why? A lot of times it's so much, and some of it you can blame a little bit of social media. Some of it you can blame social media, you can blame reality TV, but it's so much in this world as far as like
Mixed
easy
messaging.
it mixed messaging, easy
Mhm.
temptation. It's just so hard sometimes to look over at your wife, look over at your husband, look over at your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and say, "I got a good woman, I got a good man."
But
But but
mhm,
there are instances where men and women are saying that and don't even know how to treat each other, and
that's
don't even
that was
and don't even and don't even know how to treat each other.
that's why that was my entire point. That's been my point this entire conversation. Like,
So these are the different steps I recommend, in my opinion, to say.
okay,
I'm going to start with the fellas here.
yeah,
Fellas, let's say for example, there's a woman that you've been chasing for a while now,
no
right?
means no. Start there.
Okay, no means no, and we all know that sometimes that in certain situations, not defaming, no means no, but some men out here and some women out here don't understand the meaning of no means no. All right, so
Mm,
if you we as men, we are hunters.
mm,
We are supposed to go out and get the woman that we want to get.
mm.
Ladies, you are the bait, the pride. We are supposed to come out and hunt for you. Okay, understand that. Understand.
Um,
What do you have to say?
I have issues with the language you're using, bro.
Oh my gosh. What?
Nah, cause all right, cause here's why. Because that whole hunter prey mentality, that's how a lot of violence against women gets started.
I'm not speaking in a violent manner.
No, I understand you're not speaking in a, but I still like, as someone who is having a conversation with my friend
Okay.
and who has a chance to talk to everybody listening.
Let me reiterate, since I gotta sugarcoat my
Nah,
answers. I
I'm not
gotta
even telling you to sugarcoat. What I was gonna say is we need to be very careful about the language we use when speaking about people in general, because that's like part of the reason I think that treating people has become such an issue is because we haven't been careful with the language we use.
okay.
I
I wouldn't
think
call it language. I would call it more actions. It's about what actions are being seen more than the language. The
I
language
mean,
can say the same, but the actions are different. It displays that language anyway. You just call it different. You're
I
just saying
mean,
it differently.
but bruh, like let's put it this way. If I came to you and said, what's it called? Uh, I'm trying to use something innocuous right now. If I came to you and I said, "Yo, I'm a what's it called? I'm coming through and we finna put in this work, right? We finna throw hands, basically." If I said that, like, you knowing me, you can say like, "Oh, we're either gonna play a game, we're gonna do some stuff like
I'm pretty
that,"
sure
but
you wouldn't say that to a woman. I know for sure
it
you ain't about
depends.
to say that to no woman.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. A lot of people. That's not me specifically, but still, the language that gets used when we're talking to other people, that still has the ability to frame the conversation,
Okay.
right?
Okay. So I will
You agree or
reiterate.
disagree?
I will. I'm a little bit in the middle of it.
Okay. All
So
right. That's
I'm
fine.
speaking. I'm speaking from a perspective of the male species try to attract the female
Okay.
species.
If you're talking biologically, if you're talking instincts, all right, cool.
I'm
We'll
speaking instincts. I'm speaking real life. I'm
okay,
speaking.
fine. If we're
I'm not.
going
I'm
based
not
on
speaking. I'm
instincts.
not speaking lions versus deers. I'm not speaking lions versus antelopes. All right.
Okay. I mean,
All right.
yeah.
So let me reiterate this. As men, we are the hunters,
Mhm.
right? But at the same time, man, as we are hunting for women, we got to look out and be aware and see and observe. Sit back and observe how a woman reacts, how she speaks to people, how she treats her mother and father, how she treats her friends, how the fact that, you know, is she interested in you? Is she willing to give her your time? Because your time is just as valuable as hers is.
Yeah,
Is
and
she willing to be just as consistent as you are? If you're calling her, you're texting her, is she doing that in return? Is she willing to give you the first date? Is she willing? Is she interested in you past, the looks, past the fact of what you can do in the bedroom, past the fact that what you can, where you work, how much money you have, because those are the keys as far as a relationship and a marriage, and even if you want to say a friendship, will last in this world.
mhm,
If you can, if you can have a simple conversation with a woman, simple conversation that goes a long way because that makes you feel safe. That makes you the fact that you can talk to someone. Too many times, we're in situations where we can't even simply. It, there are men out here who gotta ask their woman to go to the store. Why?
I mean, at
Why?
that point, you're not in a healthy relationship. Yeah, I
But
feel.
we gotta step it up
Yeah,
and
I
say,
agree. I agree.
and just as a caveat, there are men that like that type of stuff.
Yeah, there are.
That are and by all means, if that's what makes you happy, if you're happy in these
Do what
situations,
makes you happy all
hey,
day.
do what makes you happy. You found your happiness, you found your peace of life. But there are men out here who don't like the situation they're in and try alternative means to get out of certain situations, to maybe outthink themselves, to let the spirit of thinking, overthinking, overanalyzing, just
And
disrupt
announce.
who they are.
Uh,
You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah. So basically, from what I'm understanding, you're saying the first step is
Actually, I'm saying the first step is that men and women, we need to realize how we meet each other. All right, that's the first step because, and it's just my opinion, where you meet somebody 9 times out of 10, uh, this is where they're gonna want to go all the time. If you meet a woman or a man in a bookstore, that means they. I'm pretty sure they enjoy reading. I'm pretty sure they enjoy the integral part of learning even more. You meet them in the club, they're in the club every week.
I was
Understand?
about to disagree, but I can. There are cases. It depends.
Uh, I mean, there are cases, but it takes a. Now, if you meet a woman in the club and you love going to the club and you're in there just as much as she is, fine, cool, I get it.
Mm.
But too many times we've got men and women out here complaining, oh, there's not any good women out here. Oh, there's not any good men out here. And I'm trying to help you realize that we're like Jay said, we're self-inflicting ourselves. We're making ourselves look bad by not simply communicating what we want. We gotta set standards, we gotta set expectations, and how you do that is communicate with your woman. Now, if you've done your due diligence, you've communicated with your woman, and you're not getting the result you feel you need, and it comes across as argumentative, it comes across as nonsensical, unreasonable, and you're just tired of it, you're frustrated with it, then you got some choices to make. You got some serious choices to make. Is this person worth being with after you've exhausted all other options? The reason why we got such a bad name is because we're in a situation we don't like, and
We
we're
out.
going out, and not only that, we're not only out, we're playing with mixed feelings. With like, we got a woman at home, but we got a side piece. We're doing
But I
multi.
feel like and we I mean, to the people listening, we're discussing these things continuously. It's not like we just show up on the podcast and we just have a random conversation. These are things we've been talking about.
Correct.
But like I feel like all of that starts with, well, again, the thing I initially said, learning to treat other people the way you want to be treated, the golden rule, the thing that we all learned when we were like 6, or we were supposed to learn when we were like 6. Some of us didn't. Um, and taking taking responsibility, like I've said it several different ways, taking ownership of the part we play, like doing due diligence, doing all of that stuff. That's about owning your part of the process,
So
like
explain you
taking
taking
act.
ownership. So explain taking ownership. What what
Like,
how
so
does this how does the situation change? How does the situation change at the end of the day if someone's taking ownership?
because okay,
It's a different story if I did something wrong to you. I'm taking ownership. I apologize, but
yeah,
2 weeks later I do it again.
yeah. Okay, so this is what I mean like that's not, yes, you're taking ownership, but that's not all it is. Like, that's
Yeah.
only partially what it is. Like, it's fine to acknowledge you are wrong. Like, that's part of the process. Cool. But taking ownership and taking responsibility also requires you to put in the work to correct the issue, not just say, "Oh, there was an issue." Like, if I say, "Oh, we have an issue," like me and you, Phil. If I say we have an issue, and I don't play an active role in fixing the issue, like if I don't communicate with you, oh, what, like, here's what pissed me off, or here's where my problem was, all of that sort of stuff. If I don't take an active role, if
Hmm.
I don't take ownership of that, then it's not going to be a surprise if I don't get the outcome I'm looking for, right?
Okay.
Like
So,
if
so then when people that are in that situation, what do you do about it at that point? If you
I,
having a conversation with your lady, first of all, I feel like the conversation we're having, you would have with your lady, the behaviors have already been done. You know what I mean? It's kind of too late to try to address something that's going to be continuously happening. It's a habit.
but
You
see, that's why I say we have to play an active role.
know?
Because
Okay.
if you just say it once, like it's like when you're teaching kids,
Hmm.
and I'm not trying to say like women are childish or anything like that, but like people in general. If you say something once, I mean, I don't know if it's our training or whatever the case may be, but if somebody says something once
Hmm.
and they don't listen, it's like, okay, you may not have heard me, or may not have understood how much of an impact this specific thing was
Okay.
having on me personally. So I'm
Okay.
gonna say it again. If I say it again and then you do it again, then it's like, okay, this is either a habit or this is something that you just don't care about. And if I say it a third time, then it's just like, okay, so you obviously don't care at this point, right?
Okay.
So when I say you have to continue, like you have to take an active role, it's like, don't let people slide with the one. And like, I know that's a dangerous thing to say, especially now with things like cancel culture and all that sort of stuff, but that's not what I'm talking about, because I feel like I personally feel like at specific times there are instances, but at specific times cancel culture is the easy way out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the I quit now phase,
Exactly. So in
which
specific
is which
instances,
is which is in certain instances nothing wrong with that. If you feel like you're in a
yeah.
situation that's so toxic that you picked up certain behaviors, you don't like it, you've addressed it, you talked about it, and you've exhausted all possibilities, and you're trying to work on it yourself,
Mhm.
then yeah, you gotta cancel that season. You
Yeah,
gotta cancel that
exactly.
show. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? It's
But
nothing wrong with that. It's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that. But
yeah.
we as men, we're like, and women, we as men and women, it's like, all right, well, I'll buy some flowers. That's kind of our way to express what we want, but through materials.
But one thing that I've seen personally is that like the gesture is just a starting point most of the time.
The
Like
gesture, I
the
don't agree with that.
flowers,
The gesture
no,
is never the starting point because the gesture is going to continues. It continues
no, no,
because
no, no. What I'm saying is I'm talking about like the buying flowers thing.
okay,
Like that's a good starting point. And I think this is where a lot of us get jammed up because
you
I've
don't
run
buy
into this.
flowers.
Huh?
You don't buy flowers.
Bruh, if you don't back up. You're right, I don't buy flowers, but
Get out of here.
here's
You
here's
don't buy
why.
no flowers,
Here's
man.
why. Here's why. Because I feel like the buying flowers is just that's the easy way out of the situation, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because it's just oh, I'll buy you something to
To shut you up,
smooth
to
things
to make
over.
you feel to make you feel happy.
Exactly.
But it's temporary. It's temporary.
Exactly. It's temporary. And the only way you're ultimately going to resolve the issue is through continued dialogue. And that's why I
Yeah.
say and that's why I say take ownership, because if you own something, you are continuing to interact, you are continuing to engage, you are continuing to deal with that thing if you own it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But
So
but but you're trying to change for that person. You're trying to change.
but
Now,
that's why I'm saying that's why the other piece of it comes in, which is like you have to make a choice
yeah,
at a certain
choices.
point. Like
Yeah. What's your breaking point?
exactly. You have
What's
to
your breaking
draw
point?
that line, and that goes back to setting expectations and all of those other things. Like when you draw the line, like stick to it. like if you have a line, for instance, like, oh, if infidelity is your line, okay, that's your line. If what's it called? If lying is your line, okay, that's your line. You know, sure, if you want to judge things on a case by case basis, fine. I understand that. That's cool. But
Mhm.
at a certain point, just psychologically speaking, the second you move off of your line, you have shown your this other person that you'll move again,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So there has to be consequences.
Yeah.
Like you can't just move off the line and then there's no consequence.
So are you? Do you think that men and women aren't staying firm on those consequences? It's more like we're not being taken serious. It's more like, it's almost like, all right, if you press that button again, this is what happens. But then it's like, all right, you press the button, just don't do it again, type of thing.
I think yes, but I think there's a reason for it.
What do you think the reason?
I think the reason is because, like, all the stuff we're talking about, like continuing to communicate, continue, like setting standards, all of that sort of stuff, it's
Harder for who?
harder for everybody. Like, yo, it if you like, I mean, for instance, when
It's not hard at all. So you're telling me
bro,
somebody can say what they want outside of a relationship, but they can't say what they want inside a relationship?
nah, so here's what I'm saying when I'm saying it's harder. So like you set your expectation like at the beginning. It's very easy to, like when you're not invested, it's very easy to
Mhm.
say something when you're not invested than versus when you are, you know.
Okay.
For
Okay.
instance, like you were saying that some of the feedback you were getting was from married men and married folks who were saying that, like, yeah, sometimes it's difficult to just up and leave in a hard situation, like because you got a wife, you got a kids. If you get divorced, now all of a sudden you got to pay child support, all of this sort of stuff. Like, you're invested now, so that's difficult. There's
Yeah.
momentum there, and it's
Well,
hard to shift
that,
momentum.
that's because the system is against us. But that's another story. That's another
I,
podcast.
I mean,
That's another
momentum
podcast.
is difficult to shift no matter what direction you're pushing it in. Like I
Correct.
understand that, and that's why I say it's hard, and
It is.
that's why I say it starts at the beginning. And you hit on it a little bit earlier when you said, like, the way you come into a relationship is that's the momentum you've established.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you come into a relationship with communication, with what's it called? With expectations, with all of these things, if you come in with that, and I understand people get comfortable in relationships and all of that sort of
Yes.
stuff, but if you come in with that sort of stuff, it's easier to maintain it than it is to start from scratch. So if
Correct.
if
Because
you're
it,
in
because if you start from scratch, 6 months to a year, 2 years down the road, it's gonna be hard.
yeah,
It's gonna be
it's
it's gonna be
difficult.
hard. It's gonna be hard to try to have a conversation 6 months, a year. You don't like
Exactly. When you haven't already built in that habit or that practice or whatever the case may be.
that's
So
true.
that's why I say it's hard. Y- it's it's you can say stuff, like speaking is like we're speaking right now. Like, people say things all the time, but having meaningful conversations with people,
It's the
if you're
hard part.
not in that habit, that's difficult, man.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I
So
think I think a lot of and the reason why I say a lot of the stuff is self-inflicted is because as men and some women, we haven't had to have meaningful conversations all the time, or either that, or whether it's through toxic masculinity or
we've
all
been
of this
taught
other.
because we've been taught to take it. We have been programmed to to to,
Yes,
to take
that
it.
that's true, but in the same way that you said, we now have, like, we have the ability, like if we give each other the room, this is where I bring in the toxic masculinity. Like you and me, we're having a conversation right now about things like emotions, things like relationships, stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
because we've given each other that space. We
Mm-hmm.
have that respect for each other where we can do that. But that doesn't happen with everybody.
That's
That
true.
doesn't happen with, brother to brother, man to man. That doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
And if we don't give each other that room, if we don't give each other that space with each other, then if a woman tries to give us that room, or your partner tries to give you that room, you're not going to take it, because this ain't what you do.
That's true. So these are my final thoughts on this kind of the whole self-inflicting and kind of just the power struggle. And we've touched on it a couple times.
Mhm.
So our recommendation, whether you got Jay's sugarcoating
My
intellect,
sugarcoating.
you got his sugarcoating
We need to stop
in,
disrespecting me on this podcast.
intellect, and then I come across as a little harsh, and that's okay.
No, I don't think you're harsh. I think you're being real about it.
I'm being very real because I hear all the time, and I get sick of the bad names these men are getting out here. And you got a lot of good guys out here, including myself, that are taking the hit for this.
I mean,
That
okay,
are
see,
taking,
here's
that are
one thing.
taking.
Here's one place where I want to pause and, like, me, all of that sort of stuff, like the good guys, quote unquote.
Yeah,
The bad name doesn't belong to us. Okay, the bad name doesn't belong to us. But as
but it's
members of,
attached
but
to us.
in the same way that, let's put it like this. Uh, I don't care about, I don't want to get too deep into like people's political beliefs or anything on this podcast right now. But like, let's say you've traditionally voted Republican, right?
Yeah,
For the past 4 years, we had a self-proclaimed Republican in office. And a lot of people did not enjoy this man and what he did, right? Now, if you were a decent human being, but you also consider yourself a Republican, that doesn't necessarily mean that, when people are saying, oh, Republicans ain't it right now, that doesn't mean that you're a garbage human being. That just means, oh, that group you're associated with, they're not great.
that's true.
And I feel like this is why I said the all men thing earlier. Like, if you're a good dude, yo, it's okay to acknowledge that there aren't great dudes out here. It's okay to acknowledge it, and recognize that when women, when gay people, when trans people, when lesbians, whoever, when they say, "Oh, men are not great," it's because, yeah, there's a large percentage through lived experience and just what you've heard that ain't been doing it,
Hmm.
and we need to acknowledge it. Now, if you're a good person, yo, cool, respect, love, do keep doing you. But we also have to give people the room to speak on their lived experience. If they spent their whole lives being dogged out by dudes, then it's okay if they roll up on me and be like, yo, dudes ain't it. It's like, okay, that's your life. I know some good dudes, but hey, if that's what you've been through, that's what you've been through. I accept it. Live your life. I'm just gonna keep doing me and try and be a good person. That's it.
Yep. Well, uh, those were not my final thoughts, but
Those were my final thoughts. My bad. You
so
continue. You go ahead and continue. My bad.
well, you pretty much set it all for me. But I will say this: you know, the key solution is compromise, but compromise through communication. That's the key solution. Communication is key. Ladies, be open to hear what your man has to say. If you don't like it, respectfully and peacefully have a conversation on these topics. And a lot of times, we as men, we understand that, you could be having a bad day. We get it. We have bad days every day. Every day. But it starts with communication and understanding and compromise. And all I can say is, ladies, allow us to communicate. Men, communicate with the ladies.
Learn
Talk
to
to 'em.
communicate.
Learn. Be aware. Be self-aware. Do your homework. Do your research. Observe. So those are kind of my final thoughts. You know, Jay did his. I appreciate it. That was in a non-sugarcoating way. I appreciate it. So our pretty much support all our socials right now. All the socials are up. Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Twitter, Let's Rap 2. Instagram, Let's Rap _. And YouTube, Let's Rap. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for staying on this journey with us. And we'll see you next episode.
I'm gonna need
Peace.
you to stop saying I sugarcoat stuff when I'm just trying to choose my language. Okay, that's disrespectful. I don't appreciate it, brother. Y'all take it easy.
All right. Peace.